Our goal is to educate kids, to teach the mission of the principles and foster those principles of our founding fathers about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights in America and a free country. So you guys do a wonderful job of doing that. And it's certainly an honor and a privilege to be here today. Just say that in front of all of you. So thank you for inviting us and including me and Neil. And by the way, Neil Flanagan is going to be the next president of the Henry Lawrence chapter come June. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Cooper. I'm currently Vice President of the Cambridge chapter. It's my honor and privilege to be here with you guys today. It's also an honor and a privilege to step into some relatively large shoes, literally and figuratively, when Mr. Pitts comes next year. So I'm looking forward to leading this chapter and hopefully doing half as well as he's done under his leadership. So if you'll please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll also do the pledge to the South Carolina, or the salute to the South Carolina flag. I salute the flag of South Carolina and pledge
to the Palmetto State
love,
loyalty, and faith.
Thank you.
The SAR pledge. We descendants
of the American Revolution, who by their sacrifices established the United States of America, reaffirm our faith in the principles of liberty in our constitutional republic, and solemnly pledge ourselves to defend them against every foe.
Please be seated. It's my honor to introduce our guest speaker today. A lot of you know Eric from before. Eric's a logical choice for this presentation today since he was the park ranger here for many years. So he's very familiar with the setting, what occurred here, and the importance to the revolution in itself. Eric's been retired for a couple years, but he hasn't stopped. As you can see, he's an active reenactor. Today he's playing a surgeon, so if anybody needs any type of surgery, you don't have to have an appointment, just go to the table, he'll take care of you. And the mortuary's just up the road. Just kidding. Eric plays different roles. And one of the roles he plays is as an 18th century painter. And those of us who've been able to see Eric's work, it's amazing what he does with a brush and colors. He recently donated a painting that he'd done about the massacre, Canebrake Massacre. He donated that painting to a museum up in Abbeville. And the painting encompasses the whole event, from the time that the people tried to flee, the massacre itself, everything that went in is all included in that one painting. He's very, very talented and very gifted. And it's my honor to introduce Eric. He's a historian for the chapter, a great American, and my friend.
Well, that was quite a nice introduction, Rick. I appreciate that.
You shouldn't have written it out like that.
I don't know if I can live up to all that or not, but
How much you paying?
it is such a pleasure to be here and to take part in this ceremony every year with my chapter, the Cambridge chapter, and to be able to be a part of the chapter, be a member is special to me. The Sons of the American Revolution are special because of what we stand for, what we do, to facilitate the memory and events of the American Revolution, particularly those right here in South Carolina in '96. And Josh, we're so proud that '96 is our adopted park here. And the SAR years ago kind of pushed the idea of local chapters adopting a park, hopefully near you. And we're just so proud to be able to aid and assist and be here for the park. That means so much to us and so much to me. But and I want to say also, we're glad Superintendent Josh Manley's here. And you might remember years ago that the parks, Kings Mountain, Over Mountain Victor Trail, Cowpens, and 96 were consolidated by our regional office in Atlanta to make it a Southern Parks group. And that's worked out all right, but it's even better now that we have our own superintendent again at 96, dedicated to here since 1987, I believe. And that's been a long time. But again, welcome to Josh for being here. And it's just so special to have him here and to have 96 with its own superintendent looking out for our interests here. Particularly, that is so special to us, and we're so very glad. Rick, you mentioned about the lawn cane painting I did, and I did do that. And just to say quickly before we get into our brief talk this afternoon, then mark your calendars for February the 6th, 2 p.m., because at Lower Long Cane Presbyterian Church in Troy, South Carolina, we'll have the annual commemoration again of the Long Cane Massacre, which happened February 1st, 1760, when the settlers at Long Cane Settlement, a sister settlement to 96, same time frame, there was a coordinated attack by Cherokees against settlements at that time, because a lot of the settlers were on the Cherokee hunting territory. They didn't like it. They were going to strike back, and in a series of strikes that happened at Long Canes with a settlement on February 1st. February 3rd it happened here, part of the same plan to strike back at the settlers. But anyway, February 6th, 2 o'clock, Lower Long Cane Presbyterian Church. What's really special this year is that we're going to dedicate and unveil a National Park Service style wayside trail exhibit sign. And I guess the nearest one is down here in the Meta, but it'll be a high quality, full color 24 by 48 panel, which will interpret for the first time the best interpretation that's ever been, I think, of the Long Cane incident that happened close by here. So I hope you'll mark your calendars. You're certainly invited to come and participate. There'll be a lot going on that afternoon at Lower Long Cane Presbyterian Church, which itself dates to about 1770 or so. All right, our purpose here this afternoon, we've touched on it, but I want to just tell you a little bit about why we're here, what happened here, and kind of tie it all together, hopefully at the end, with something to think about for all of us. So, 1775, a monumental year, because the American Revolution, most historians agree, got started that year. America's quest for freedom had begun. Most Americans had divided loyalties, either to pursue independence from the British Crown or to remain loyal. Of course, some just wanted to be left alone. Don't bother me with it. Live my life, and that was a thought too. But conflict was inevitable. It was coming. On March of that year, Virginia firebrand Patrick Henry uttered his famous phrase, which was, "Give me liberty or give me death." A month later, Massachusetts Minutemen and British regulars met at Lexington Concord in Massachusetts. The first blood was shed for liberty. The bells of freedom were ringing throughout the land. For 8 more years and hundreds of battles, America would be embroiled in one of its longest wars. The year 1775 was a year of particular importance because America's independent spirit had manifested itself, and by this time, there was no looking back. South Carolina's role in the war for independence started early on. only 7 months after the Lexington battle, Patriot commanders Andrew Williamson and James Mason, with several companies of local militia soldiers at 96, quickly constructed and defended a crude, hastily built fort of wood, hay bales, and as one account says, raw beef hides. This site, Williamson's Fort, is where we stand today. Here, 500 patriots held their ground for 3 days, despite the king's loyalists outnumbering them 3 to 1, and it should be noted that there were 3,000 men engaged in that first battle south of New England during the war, and that the men on all, or on both sides rather, all of the men were Americans. Does that surprise you? It shouldn't too much. They're all Americans. Just believe something different. Patriot Private James Birmingham, and we're going to focus on him a few minutes this afternoon, was here for that battle. A young man. He was a soldier with the Long Cane Militia, just west of here. A young husband and father. That November he answered the call, and he marched with his militia company the 20 miles here from his home on Penny's Creek in what's now Abbeville County to defend the threatened 96. How could he have known what lay ahead as his fort was surrounded, or that day would be his last muster call? Birmingham came just as generations of courageous young Americans have always come, answering freedom's call to defend their country. As he tightly held his musket, standing behind the fort's palisade walls with a combination of valor and fear, Birmingham was struck with a loyalist musket ball and collapsed instantly with a mortal wound. Birmingham was the first South Carolinian to give his life for freedom. Now, how important is that? Think about that. Right here, the first patriot soldier to give his life for freedom was right here in the whole American Revolution. That's notable. That means something. He never returned home, but instead was buried inside Williamson's Fort. Historical accounts tell us that. In an unmarked grave by his comrades, other young men who had left their homes, his friends, left their families knowing that the same fate just might await them. This happened many times across Revolutionary War battlefields, including the 1781 siege, which was to follow 6 years later at 96. And throughout our history, it is repeated many, many times. Young soldiers, pride of the nation, leave their families, march to distant places, courageously face danger, and are taken down by enemy fire, mourned by comrades, friends, and family. So, on this fall afternoon, beautiful day that it is, the year 1775 seems like a long time ago. Many years and generations have passed since that time. Yet today, we gather across this windswept field, and we cannot forget the sacrifices and sacred ideals held dear by those revolutionary patriots who, like Birmingham, gave their young lives and service for an independent America. It is also our privilege to be here today. For by our presence, these soldiers of so long ago are honored and their service is remembered. On this day, we all share something in common, whether we're families, whether we're reenactors, National Park Service staff, sons, daughters, children of the American Revolution. What we share is that we preserve and we pass along to the next generation the legacies and sacred ideals of our patriot ancestors, and we connect with our Revolutionary War heritage. The local Cambridge chapter SAR joins other SAR, DAR, and CAR chapters in this common effort. Cambridge chapter, I'm proud to say, has taken several specific positive steps to honor our Revolutionary patriots by every year placing American flags at the graves of all locally known Revolutionary War veterans at the July 4th holiday. The chapter has coordinated the restoration of the McGee-Watson Cemetery in Greenwood, wherein lie the remains of Captain John Montague, who was a personal bodyguard of George Washington. Now, how many people knew about that? Finally, the chapter has initiated efforts with the National Park Service and Department of Archaeology and Anthropology to positively identify the remains of James Birmingham and to have them eventually returned to this site. And it looks like, from a conversation earlier just before about talk, that this may be coming to fruition after many, many, many years. Perhaps most important of all this, the National Park Service, the designated protector of America's most significant natural and historic lands, is charged with preserving, protecting, and passing on to future generations the sacred custody of lands, representing the great patchwork of America's history. The lands where our patriot forebears trod, fought, and died, such as right here at 96 National Historic Site. Those who wear the uniform of the National Park Service are endowed with a special honor. They are to keep the sacred trust of caring for and preserving the nation's most treasured sites. And just a quick sidelight, that's one thing. You know, people ask me sometimes, you miss working with the I do, I miss it. Some of the things I don't miss too much, but one thing I do miss is wearing my uniform every day. It was a pleasure to wear the uniform, and I knew when I put that uniform on that I was representing other Rangers across the nation who are protecting the best of the nation's best, natural and historic sites. But I do very much miss wearing the uniform. That's just a sideline. For all here today, it is our obligation and privilege to facilitate those revolutionary connections to those who will come after us. We will know when we have done our part by telling the brave stories of patriots like the young Long King Militia Private James Birmingham. National Park Service author and historian Jerome Green wrote one time that in the years following the American Revolution, quote, the people of this area, 96 area, continued to maintain a lively interest in the history of 96, although the walls of the palisade at Williamson's Fort had long disappeared. The British earthwork still endured, that's the Star Fort, for decades, along with the vestiges of the old jail site, the only tangible remnants left. By the mid-1800s, the Star Fort stood proudly as a prominent local landmark. Now, one landowner, his name was James McCracken. This would have been about in 1840s, 1850s. James McCracken wrote that to quote him, the local inhabitants consider the trees and shrubbery on the battleground are too sacred to molest. That's one thing that's always impressed me when I first started working here and began to research deeply into the history of this place, is that right after the war happened and people began to move back here, of course the Star Fort was out there, always has been there, as the great earthwork it is, but it's always impressed me of how the generations of people back then took pride, they took interest, and they had a preservation attitude toward what had happened at 96. And here you have a landowner, James McCracken, who said it's even, don't even cut the shrubbery because it's on sacred ground. But leave it alone. And that, when you're a historian, as we are today, that tugs at your heart. That means something. Even back then, there was an effort to tell the stories, to preserve what was here. So in conclusion, that we hold these sacred grounds so sacred as they did, and our patriot sacrifices to be just the same. Let's make these connections with future generations, honor our patriot ancestors, and likewise consider these blood-stained battlefields as sacred grounds whose care is entrusted to our present grateful generation. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric, for those inspiring words in the history of Nice Traveling Dukes to deliver the reception.
Please join with me the recessional. Until we meet again, let us remember our obligations to our forefathers who gave us our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, an independent Supreme Court, and a nation of free men. Let us pray. Our Father in heaven, we are indeed thankful that you are with us today as we pay honor to our patriots. May we go from here and your gratitude go with us so that when we come into contact with our brothers and sisters, we always have a good word to express to them how thankful we are that we have forefathers that served for our goodness. Go with us back to our house. Be with us as we go from day to day, and watch over and guide us. This we ask your great and holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all for coming today. That's the end of the ceremony. We appreciate everybody hanging out. We appreciate the firing of muskets from the reenactors that were here today. Park Service, of course, we're in deep gratitude to you for all your help in setting us up and allowing us to come and commemorate the anniversary of the battle that occurred here. Please take advantage of the reenactors that are here today. They love to talk to people. Like I said, Eric's taking appointments, so you just got to drop by the table, or if you need anything medical taken care of. Everybody else would love to talk to you. The ladies are making soap. There's lots of stuff going on over here at the park. So please take advantage of it while you're here. And thank you all for coming. And God bless. Yes, sir.
I finally took a 45 to Hawaii and had another trip where I was going around and go to elementary. Of course, they can't. Now I got to Hawaii.
Yeah. I've never been stuck in Hawaii, but it doesn't sound too bad.
No, could be a lot worse, that's for sure.
Because what the soldier would do is he'd have a 5-pound keg of powder sitting here. Now, a 5-pound keg of powder is about that big around.
Miles away from the town of 96 where it is today, but if you go down, the whole trail is maybe 1.25 miles, the whole loop, but it takes you right by the earthworks.
Well, I'm a docent at the Fort Douglas Museum on the University of Utah campus.
Okay.
This fort was actually started October of 1860.
Yeah. The soap is not as bad. It usually bites fried chicken.
Yeah.